You do not go to hell. You don't have to go to hell. Say, oh, praise the Lord, that's wonderful. That's God's mercy. But then God goes another step way beyond that. It's called the grace of God. Grace is where you do get what you don't deserve. God says, not only, son, do you not go to hell, I'm going to take you to heaven. Say, why? My mercy. My grace. My grace. See, mercy is where you don't get what you legally deserve, and grace is where you do get what you don't deserve. Sometimes I would have a kid who's causing trouble. Let's say we'll take George, for instance, here. George has gotten a number of demerits, a number of detentions from me. He's had his dad called, and George has been in trouble. But I know George really just kind of is a scatterbrain. He's not very tightly put together. Once in a while, out of the clear blue, I would say, George, look, you're talking again, or your homework's not in, George. You know the punishment, George, when your homework's not in. But George, today I want to show you mercy. I am not going to give you the punishment. Forget about it. It's over with. Instead, George, here's 50 cents or $1. Go to the cafeteria, buy yourself a Coke, and bring it back to class. You can drink it right here. Why? Grace. See, grace is when you get something totally undeserved. George doesn't deserve to be able to drink a Coke in class. Are you kidding? He deserves to be in trouble. And he knows it and everybody else knows it. And it's a great way to illustrate not only the mercy of God, but the grace of God. Way beyond mercy. George, you've been talking? That's enough. George, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a Snickers candy bar. Now, you don't do that very often, maybe once a year. But it'll leave an impression on George's mind that he will never forget. So the grace and mercy was an idea that somebody gave me, and I've used it many times. Get a few more thoughts here organized. As far as homework and testing, let me grab the board here and show you some ideas that we used for homework passing out, or for letting kids know what homework was due and when. I always, on my chalkboard, in the corner of the room, in one of my chalkboards, or sometimes on a separate small chalkboard, I would have blocked off with permanent lines like a white magic marker or white crayon or black magic marker even. If you have a small board that you can sacrifice just for this purpose, I would draw a grid on there like this, and it would have my classes that I taught. First hour biology, second hour life science, chemistry, physics, whatever you're teaching, math, doesn't matter. Each hour of the day, first hour, second hour, third hour, fourth hour. Across the top were the days of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then a future column. At the beginning of the week, on Monday, when the kid walks into class, the biology students know, hey, on Monday, we're going to read page 205 to page 220, and we're supposed to do questions 1 through 10. That's what's due on Monday. So they would have known that, of course, on the Friday before, actually the whole week before, because as the days are gone, I erase them and put in, I try to stay a full week ahead of time on the homework. They also know as far as future, what's coming up. This eliminates many problems. The students can never say, well, you didn't tell us that was due. Wait a minute, it's been on the board all week. If your homework is always assigned a week ahead of time, now of course you have to make alterations. If something happens and you have to skip a day, you may have to say, okay kids, you know we were supposed to read this for tomorrow, but because of the special chapel or whatever, we're going to move that to Thursday and shift everything up a day. You couldn't possibly get 6 weeks ahead and keep accurate with it. What this is, basically, is an open book lesson plan. The kids know what's coming for a whole week. No surprises. You're not hiding anything from them, and they can't say, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. It's been there all along. And they got so sick of hearing that, they would say, oh, never mind, it's on the board, isn't it? They would say, Mr. Hovind, sometimes they'd call me at home. Say, Mr. Hovind, what's the homework for tomorrow? I'd say, oh man, I have no idea. It's on the board. And they soon learn, hey, don't call him at home. He doesn't know what's due tomorrow. He leaves it on the board. It's open lesson plan, everybody. And it stopped all the phone calls at home for me. I got 2 or 3 a year, and then they learned, hey, it's useless. Don't call him at home. He won't tell you what to do. Because I honestly didn't know. I mean, sometimes I may know, but I wouldn't tell him. I'd say, look, I'm sorry. It's been on the board all week. You'd have to look at the board. Come in early and look at my board and see what's due. But it stopped that problem of kids calling me at home. It was just always assigned on the board a week ahead of time. And I encourage kids, now people argue about this, teachers argue, but because I was teaching junior high and high school, maybe it's a little different. I encouraged kids to use their time wisely, or tried to. If you're done with Monday's homework, start on Tuesdays. You can work as far ahead as you want. I've heard teachers say, oh, don't ever let the kids work ahead, and they punish them for working ahead. I think you better think that one through one more time. You are discouraging productivity. If a student wants to work ahead in my biology class so that he can use any extra spare minutes for the history test coming up, hey, that's fine with me. I mean, every adult does the same thing. When you get behind in one area, you don't get the grass mowed and you don't get the car washed or waxed or the oil changed. I mean, you learn to use the seconds wisely if you have a busy life schedule. And the busier you get, the more you get done in a day's time, and the more you have to use every second wisely. So the idea of working ahead, to me, is obviously the way it ought to be done. If I see a student working on something in my class, if I say, okay, students, you have 10 minutes till the bell rings, you can use these last 10 minutes for study time. During that 10 minutes, I would walk up and down the aisles, check each kid, see what he's doing. If he's working on history instead of my science, I would say, let me see your science, please. I want to make sure your homework's done. If the homework was done, then I allowed him to use my class time for other subjects. That's the way I did it. I thought that's perfectly fine. Now, I wouldn't let him do it if my homework wasn't done. This is science class. You do my homework first. Now, if that teaches the kids to look ahead down the road a few days, which kids desperately need help looking down the road, learning to plan ahead, if they knew they've got a big project coming up on Friday, and here it is Tuesday, and the student is sitting there in my biology class, and we've gone through all of our stuff we're learning that hour, we've got 5 minutes left, he says, man, I better study for that English exam next Friday or Thursday. Well, if his homework is done, he can work ahead in my class so that he would have those 5 minutes that I give at the end of each class for study, he would have that for English or math or history or some other subject. I felt that was perfectly fine and actually encouraged them to work ahead if their homework was done. Something else I did, if the homework was done for that class and if they were on A or B honor roll, I had some special things I would let them do. Very seldom, but once in a while, I would say, okay, kids, we have 5 minutes of study time. If your homework is completely done for tomorrow, come up and see me, and you can be dismissed early. Now, I didn't do that often, and it was only for certain students, and if they ever abused the privilege, I wouldn't give it to them again. If I let a student out even 2 minutes, even 10 seconds early, letting a student out of class 10 seconds early, psychologically is a tremendous reward for them. They get their books and get to walk out of class early, and everybody else is looking at them, and they're cool stuff, man. They get out early. And the rest of the kids are, how did he get that? He did his work. Oh, I better get doing my work. So that was, again, something to encourage productivity. You see, under the communist system, productivity is discouraged because you're not going to reap the rewards of your labors. And I'm afraid many teachers stifle productivity in their students by not rewarding ideas when they say, hey, I'm going to work ahead. I'm going to do my best. And I think scripturally it's a whole lot closer to the truth, this idea of letting them work ahead and be rewarded accordingly for their deeds. So I would give them time out of class if they had everything done ahead of time and homework. Another thing that I used, I got from somebody, I forget where, but every 6 weeks I would drop the lowest grade in the grade book. No questions asked, the lowest grade is crossed out. This did a number of interesting things psychologically. The student knew he could have a bad day and it wouldn't affect him. Now, my system of grading was a little different. Every homework and every quiz counted one time. Counted equally. That's just the way I did it. And I had a quiz almost every day. It would sometimes be just a real quick quiz. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But the lowest grade was always dropped. If I have a minor test, a weekly test, that would count 2 times or 3 times in the grade book. If it was a major test, it may count 5 times. And I would tell the students, I fill out the lowest grade each